Guys, in the last session, we discussed about media types, right? So here, consumes available, produces available. Consumes is an attribute which represents in which format REST API method can take the input. Produces represents in which format REST API method can provide the output. Now here, client application will be available and resource application will be available. So now, when the client is sending a request to the server, client will send the HTTP request packet, request URL, request header, request method, like this. So now, in which format client is sending a request to the server, that will be specified by using content type header. Content type header will represent the format of the data that the client is sending. And similarly, accept header will be available. Accept header represents in which format client is expecting the data. Now here guys, today I want to develop one application. Today I want to develop one application. So this application, I'm naming it as IRCTC application. I'm naming this application as IRCTC application. Now, in the IRCTC application, I want to write two methods. One is post request method book ticket. And the second one is get request method get ticket. Okay. So one is post request method, another one is get request method. Now, client can access this IRCTC application. Client can book the ticket and client can get the ticket. Okay. Now here, client can send the request for book ticket and client can send the request for get ticket. So like this, there are two methods that I want to write in the IRCTC application. And to book the ticket, client application should send some passenger data. And to get the ticket, ticket ID is required. Okay. So this is our client application. So assume that this is a Make My Trip application. Client application should book the ticket by using IRCTC. So to book the ticket, here we are writing one post request method. To get the ticket, we are writing one get request method. Post request method and get request method will be available. Get request method and post request method will be available. Right. Now guys, when we are developing a REST API, the most important thing is first we need to develop binding classes. The most important thing is first we need to develop our binding classes. Now my requirement. So what is my requirement? Develop REST API to book train tickets. Okay, it should contain two endpoints. It should contain two endpoints. One is book ticket, and the second one is get ticket. Two endpoints should be available. This is my requirement. Develop REST API to book the train tickets. It should contain two endpoints. One is book the ticket and the second one is get the ticket. Book ticket method, I will bind to post request method. Get ticket method, I will bind to get request method. Okay guys. Now in the book ticket method, what input I want? Input I want passenger data. And what is the output I will provide from this? I will provide ticket data. In the get ticket method, what is the input? The input is ticket ID. And what is the output? Ticket data. So like this, we have the requirement. Okay guys, develop REST API to book the train tickets. It should contain two endpoints. So one is book ticket and another one is get ticket. So book ticket means it should take the input as passenger data and output as the ticket data. Okay. Get ticket means it should take the get request. The input for this is ticket ID. The output from this is ticket data. Okay, guys. Now here, if you take in the book ticket post request, what are the consumes formats it should support? Passenger data, it can accept in the XML and JSON. And produces, it can produce the data in the XML and JSON. So that is my requirement. When it comes to the get ticket method, now input is ID, so consumes is not required. Produces, it can provide the ticket data XML and JSON format. Now consumes, it is not applicable for this because so to get the ticket, client will give the ticket ID. It is just one number. Based on the ticket ID, it should provide the ticket data either in the XML format or in the JSON format. Develop a REST API to book the train tickets. It should contain below two endpoints. One endpoint is booking the ticket that should be binded to post request. Another endpoint is getting the ticket that should be binded to get request. Input is ticket ID and output is ticket data. Here in the book ticket, input is the passenger data, output is the ticket data. So it can consume both XML and JSON data as input, and it can provide XML and JSON as an output. But in the get ticket method, it is not taking any XML or JSON consumes because ticket ID is the input. Based on the ticket ID, it should provide the ticket data. Output can be provided in the XML or JSON. So what are the outputs we are supporting that will be represented by producers? What are the input we are supporting that is representing by the consumes? Are you able to understand the given requirement? So for this requirement, we need to develop a REST API. For this requirement, we need to develop a REST API. Please, all of you, read the requirement and understand. All of you, please read the requirement and understand. Can we start the development of this REST API now? If I develop this REST API, then our application will become a provider application. Any client can access our application. Are you able to understand this? Now, so guys, here, when we are going to develop a REST API, the very first thing that we need to do, development procedure for above requirement. What are the steps we need to follow to develop the above requirement? Create Spring Boot application. That is the first step. Create Spring Boot application with below dependencies. Web Starter, Lombok, and DevTools. So we need a Web Starter to develop this application, and I need the Lombok for setters and getters. I need the DevTools. When I modify the code, my server should be restarted. Okay. Create the boot application with the below dependencies. Second step, this is the most important thing, guys. Create request and response binding classes. Okay. Client will send a request data and the client is expecting the response data. So create request and response binding classes. That means the Java classes which represents the request structure and the response structure, we need to create those binding classes. Once those binding classes are created, then we need to create REST controller class. Create REST controller class with required methods. Bind the REST controller methods to HTTP request methods. Bind the REST controller methods to HTTP request methods. Are you guys clear? Are you guys clear with my point? Are you guys clear with my point? So we need to create the boot application with the below dependencies like web starter, project Lombok, and DevTools. Then we need to create the request and response binding classes. As we discussed in the requirement, client will send the input as a passenger data, output they are expecting as a ticket data. So what data we need as a passenger data, what data we are providing as a ticket data. All right. So for that, we need to create the request and response binding classes. So then once our request and response binding classes are created, then we need to create the REST controller with the required methods. Once that is done, whatever the methods we are creating, we need to bind our REST controller methods to HTTP request methods. So once we bind our methods to HTTP request methods, then we need to run our application, test our application with the postman. Test our application with the postman. Are you guys clear? Are you guys clear with this procedure? Shall I start the development of this API, or you want to read the requirement once again? This is my requirement. Read it. So based on this requirement, we need to do the coding now. Two endpoints means two methods with two different URLs. Two endpoint means two methods. Every method is called as one endpoint. Okay. Yeah. One endpoint should be binded to post request. Another endpoint should be binded to get request. First endpoint expecting input as passenger, give the output as ticket data. It can take consumes XML JSON. Passenger data can come in the XML format as well as in the JSON format. Ticket data it can provide in the XML format and JSON format. Get ticket. It will take the ticket ID as input from the URL. Path parameters are query parameters. So consumes not applicable. Produces XML or JSON. It can provide the ticket data in the XML or JSON format. So this is my requirement. Are you guys clear? Yeah, the procedure. So whenever you are developing a REST API, remember that this second step is very, very, very important. Mapping request data to a binding class, mapping response data to a binding class. This step is very, very, very important. Create a boot application with the below dependencies. Create the request and response binding classes. Create the REST controller with required methods. Bind REST controller methods to HTTP request methods. Run our application with the embedded server. Spring Boot will provide embedded server. Then test our application with the Postman. So these are the details. Got my point? Yes. Let me go and create the project. File, new, starter project. So I'm making this as 25 Spring Boot REST IRCTC application, or else e-rail application, e-rail API, I can call Spring Boot REST e-rail API, railway booking. So fine, click on next, Spring Web dependency, Spring DevTools dependency, and I'm going for Lombok dependency. Right? 3 dependencies I have selected: Web dependency, Lombok dependency, and DevTools dependency. Click on next, click on finish. So with this, my project is getting created. Once it is created, I need to create the request and response binding classes. So based on client input and output, I need to create my binding classes, right? So input is coming as passenger data, output should go as a ticket data. Right. Application created. Go to form.xml. Version 2.7.9. Java version 1.8 that I am configuring. Okay. Spring Boot 2.7.9, Java 1.8, Web Starter, DevTools, Lombok. Perfect. Maven, update the project. Maven, force update. Once it is done, now I need to create the binding classes. So what is request? Request is passenger. What the input? Passenger. Output? Okay. So let me create some classes. Okay. So thus I'm going to keep one in the request package, that is passenger data. I will get in the request. Then what about the ticket data? Ticket data we are using for response. So let me keep that in the response package. That is ticket. Now, passenger. What data we will take from the passenger to book a ticket? Private string, first name, private string, last name, something like this. Private string from address, from station, private string to station, private string date of journey, and private string train number. So this is information that is required to book the train. Okay. Now for this I want setters getters. Instead of I am writing, I'm going for Lombok. So this is the class, passenger class, which I created in the request package. What is the meaning of that? So whatever the data that is coming in the request, that data will be stored into this passenger object. Then what about ticket? In the ticket, I will take private integer, some ticket ID, private string from private string to private string train number and private string ticket amount, ticket cost, and private string ticket status. Something like this. Whatever the data that you want to send, you can send it, guys. I'm taking some dummy variables here. Now, for this also, I want to setters getters. I'm writing @ data. Okay. Passenger.java class is available and ticket.java class is also available. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? Right. So one class I'm representing as a request class, another class I'm representing as a response class. So once it is done, then let us create our REST controller. New class in.ashokit.rest. Here I'm creating eRail REST controller, a separate package. So to represent this class as a REST controller, I'm using @REST controller annotation. Now, inside this REST controller, as per the requirement, it should contain 2 endpoints. What is the first one? To book the ticket. Okay. So here I'm writing one method, public ticket, book ticket. To book the ticket, we need passenger data. To book the ticket, we need the passenger data. So I'm taking passenger data as the input of the method. and I'm taking ticket object as an output. Can I take JSON directly and return the JSON? Is it recommended to take the JSON data as a method input, JSON data as a method output, or object as input, object as output? Which one is recommended? Which one is recommended? Sir, why are you not taking the passenger ID? You can take any variables, man. These are just dummy variables to represent the data. We are not doing the real ticket booking here. Just I have taken some dummy variables. If I take first two variables also, that is sufficient, right? The variables are a dummy, just to represent some data. That's it. This is not real ticket booking. Okay. Right. I got this method. Now here, I will write some logic to book ticket. Logic to book the ticket. Now finally, I need to create the ticket object. Ticket T is equal to new ticket, and I need to return the ticket object. Right. Here the logic will come to book the train tickets, but we don't need to do that. We just need to understand how the request is coming and how the response is going. I'm writing one REST controller. To represent this class as a REST controller, I'm using this annotation. In this, I'm writing one method. This method is responsible to book the ticket. It is expecting passenger data. For that, I will bind this method to post mapping method. I will bind this method to post mapping method. In this post mapping method, value is equal to slash book or else slash ticket. Post mapping. It is used to book the ticket. Now, to book the ticket, it is expecting passenger data, right? In which format the passenger data should come? Consumes value and produces value. What it can consume? It can consume application slash XML, comma, it can consume application slash JSON. Consumes. Same thing is applicable for produces also. That means which application is trying to interact with my application to book the ticket. They can send passenger data in the XML format as in the JSON format. They can take the ticket data in the XML format as well as in the JSON format. That is the meaning of this consumes and produces. This method is binded to post request. Okay. Client will send passenger data in the request body. How to take the data from the request body? By using @request body annotation. What is the meaning of request body annotation? Request body annotation will represent that client will send the request to this REST API in the body. Passenger data will come in the body. I need to take the data from the request body and I need to store into this object. For that, we are using @request body. Here, the real logic will be available to book the ticket, but here I'm creating some dummy ticket data. T.set some ticket ID, right? Something like this 101. T.set from station. We are getting from the passenger. Passenger.get from, and T.set to address. Some passenger data. I'm taking the details and I'm setting here. It is dummy data only. Passenger dot get to address. Now T dot set ticket status. So it is confirmed, something like this. T dot ticket status, I'm taking it as confirmed. Then T dot some train number. I'm expecting that from the passenger. Passengers dot get train number. Okay. T dot set ticket cost or ticket price, whatever it is. C dot set ticket ID, ticket cost. Okay. Some value I'm specifying 1500 INR. Fine. So this is my REST API method, guys. Now, do you understand why I am taking post mapping? What is this value? What is this consumes? And what is this produces? Guys, are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? Why I am taking passenger object as a parameter, ticket object as a return type. That means this method is expecting passenger object as the input and this method is returning ticket object as the output. Consumes. Client can send passenger data in the XML or JSON and REST API can produce the response in the XML or JSON. So my method is having both consumes as well as produces. Okay, guys. Now I want to write another method, public ticket, get ticket by using integer ticket ID. Okay, guys. By using ticket ID, I want to get that ticket. Okay, logic to get from the database. Logic to get the ticket from the database. So finally, what I will do, I will return some dummy ticket object. Ticket.set ticket ID, whatever you are setting, that ticket object data I am getting and the ticket object I am sending back. Or else I can do one thing. I can create one ticket map. I can create one ticket map, integer and ticket. Tickets is equal to new hash map. So whenever the ticket booking is completed, before returning the ticket, I will store that into tickets.put ticket ID, something like this. Set ticket ID is there, na? So ticket ID I will store here and I will store the ticket object into ticket map, ticket ID. Okay, I need to generate some random ticket ID. Okay, for that what I will do, UUID dot random UUID dot get on this. Let me go for random class, random dot class dot. I will create random r is equal to new random r dot next int r dot next int of some 100, something like this, or else r dot next int. So what is the return type? Int value. That is my ticket ID. I will use that as a key to store the data in the map. Now it is my ticket map. Whatever the tickets I'm booking, those tickets I'm storing into ticket map. So whenever I get a request with the ticket ID, instead of setting the dummy data, I will check tickets dot contains key of this ticket ID. Tickets dot contains key of this ticket ID. Then I want to get that ticket. Return tickets dot get of ticket ID. Otherwise, I will return null value. I don't have a ticket. This method is used to get the ticket data. So now, instead of fetching from the database, I'm fetching the tickets from the map. So whenever client send a request to book the ticket, I will book the ticket. Whatever the ticket is booked, for the ticket, I'm giving some random ID. With that random ID, I'm storing the ticket in the map. So whenever client asks again to get the ticket back with the ticket ID, I'm writing this method with the get mapping. This method I'm binding to the get mapping because client want to get the ticket. So value is equal to slash ticket ID. So in the URL, it is a get request. For the get request, body will not be available. For the post request, body will be available. So passenger data they can send in the body. So to take the data from the body, we are using request body annotation. But when we are going for the get request method, body will not be available. They need to send the data in the URL only. Slash ticket ID. Now, so here, this is my path parameter. Okay, comma, consumes. Am I expecting any data? No, it is just ID. ID will come in the URL. But here, I can specify produces ticket object, application slash XML or application slash JSON. Application slash XML or application slash JSON data they can provide. Consumes are not available for this method because it is a get request method. It is not taking any data from the body. It is taking the data from the URL. So how to read the data from the URL? For that, we will use annotation called path variable. To read the data from the body, we will use request body annotation. To read the data from the URL, we will use path variable. In the Spring Web MVC, we already discussed what is query parameter and what is path parameter. So if a client want to send some data to the server in the URL, then you can go for query parameter or we can go for path variable. This is one endpoint and this is another endpoint. Are you clear with my development now? Are you guys clear with my development now? Come on, guys. So get mapping I'm using to bind this method to get request. This method will take the ticket ID in the URL as a path variable. That ticket ID it will use to identify the ticket is present in the map or not. Map is my database here. Whatever the tickets that are booked from my application, those tickets I will store into a map in the form of key value. What is the key here? Ticket ID is the key, ticket data is the value. This is my map. Instead of storing in the database, I'm using just map. Later, we will store this data into database and we will fetch from the database also. So here, this is my tickets map. Whatever the tickets that are booked by our application, those tickets data I will store into tickets map. So once it is done, then I will go for this book ticket method. This method is binded to post request. It is binded to a URL pattern. This can take the passenger data in the XML or JSON, consumes XML or JSON. It will produce the ticket data in the XML or JSON. As the data coming in the request body, to read the data from the request body and store it to the variable, I'm using request body annotation. Okay. Now here logic will be there to book the ticket. I'm setting some dummy data for the ticket. Once that is done, I'm storing the ticket data into ticket object, ticket map. I'm returning the ticket data to the client. After some time, client may want to get the ticket information back. Then client should send a get request with the ticket ID in the URL. Get request will not contain the body. So client has to send the request data in the URL only. To read the data from the URL, I'm using path variable. Once I get the ticket ID, with the ticket ID, I will check the ticket is present in the map or not. If the ticket is present in the map, then I will return that ticket. Otherwise, I will return null value. Now, can we consider our application is having two endpoints? One is book ticket, another one is get ticket. Now, let me run my application. Let me run my application. Right click, Maven, update the project. Right click Maven, update the project. My application is available. Now, let me run this project, run as boot application. Run this application, run as boot application. Application started with a Tomcat server 8080, clear. Now go to Postman in order to test our API. Go to Postman in order to test our API. Now I can request from the Postman to book the ticket. Okay. Book ticket method is binded to which request man? Post request. Book ticket is binded to post request. So now here I need to send a post request with the / ticket. Now in the post request, I need to send passenger data, right? I need to send the passenger data. So this application should send a post request with the passenger data. Passenger data. Okay. Send the request to this REST API with the passenger data. In which format we can send the passenger data? JSON. And I want the response also in the JSON format. I will send the request with the JSON data. I want response also JSON data. Can you tell me how can I set that my request data is JSON and I want response also in the JSON. How can I tell to the REST API? Now I am a client. Now I am a client. API development is completed. Now I am acting as a client. I want to test it. How can I tell to my API? I will send request data in the JSON format and I want the response data also in the JSON format. Content type and accept. So what is the difference between content type and accept? Both are headers only. What is the difference between content type and accept? Content type will represent in which format we are sending the data. Content type is equal to application/JSON and accept is equal to application/JSON. Content type is equal to application/JSON. Accept is equal to application/JSON. What is the meaning of that? Client will send request with JSON data and client is expecting response also in the JSON format. Now go to body. We need to send passenger data. First name, last name. What are the values we are setting? First name, last name, from, comma, to, comma, date of journey, comma, train number, comma, train number. So these are the values that we need to send in the request. First name, Ashok. Last name, some value, Ashok Kumar. From HYD to Delhi. Date of journey, some value. Okay. 30th, 03/23. Train number, some value like this. Okay. Can I call this is my request data? Can I call this is my request data? Passenger data, can I say this? Can I say this? It is a passenger request, passenger JSON. Passenger data in JSON format. This is my passenger data in the JSON format. Okay. Now let us take this data and let us make a request to the REST API. Click on send. Now, can you see, am I able to get my ticket data back? Am I able to get the ticket data? So I'm giving passenger data as an input for the REST API. What the REST API is giving back to me? It is giving me ticket data. Now, do you understand how Make My Trip and IRCTC will communicate now? So here, Make My Trip application is available. Here, Make My Trip application is available. And here, IRCTC application is available. Okay. Make My Trip will send a request to the IRCTC with the passenger data. IRCTC will take the passenger data, will book the ticket, will send the ticket data back to the Make My Trip application. Now, can you see here? I'm sending a post request. I'm sending a post request with the ticket. Now, with the ticket URL pattern, I'm sending the request data, passenger data in the request body. Now I got the ticket. This is the ticket ID. Some random number I used it for the ticket ID. Let me note down this ticket ID. Okay. Now I want to send a get request with the ticket ID. Now I want to send a get request with the ticket ID. Now go to get request /ticket/ticket ID. Now I am sending a get request /ticket/ticket ID. Send it. Now am I able to get the ticket back? Am I able to get the ticket data by sending a get request? Customer want to check the status of the ticket. So customer is sending a get request with the ticket ID in the URL. So to read the data from the URL in my REST controller, I used one annotation called path variable annotation. Path variable annotation. Okay. Now here I want to support for XML also. Then I need to use @XML root element. When I go for @XML root element, client can take the response in the XML format as well as in the JSON format. My application is restarted, so map will be recreated. I'm not using the database because we need to understand input data and output data of the REST API. Okay, my application is restarted. Now again, go back to our post request. Go back to our post request, body, headers. I want output as XML. Input I am giving in the JSON format, but output I want in the XML. Post request I am sending with the /ticket. Localhost :8080/ticket. I'm sending a post request. Click on send. Now you see ticket data coming in the XML format. Body data I'm sending in the JSON format. Input I am giving in the JSON format. Output I am taking in the XML format. Is it possible? Because my method can consume XML or JSON. My method can produce XML or JSON. Input I am sending in the XML format. That is passenger data. I'm sending in the JSON format. This is our post request method. Ticket, it is booking by taking passenger. Consumes available, produces available. What is the meaning of consumes? It can take, client can send passenger data in the XML format or JSON format, anything. It is a client interest. And produces is XML and JSON. Client can take ticket in the XML format or JSON format. That is client interest. How client is deciding? Headers. When the client is sending a request to the REST API, client is sending content type as application/JSON. Client is setting accept application/XML. That means request body data, passenger data will go in the JSON format and ticket data will come in the XML format. Ticket data in the XML format. Now take this ticket ID. Now send a get request ticket/ticket ID. Now accept XML or accept JSON. This is the ticket ID that we need to provide. Now ticket ID we need to provide. Remove this content type and accept. Click on send. Now I think the map is recreated. The map is recreated. The ticket ID, it is not able to identify that. So with the ticket ID here we need to set. Let me take a post request once again. Now send this request, guys. Click on send. Ticket is created and I got the ticket ID. Now take this ticket ID. Now go to get request, pass this ticket ID, click on send. I think the ticket ID generating in the negative number. That's why it is not /ticket/ID that we are passing. Click on send. I think the map became empty because of that negative number, guys. Let me print the map which is available here. So from the map, we are not able to get the object system.out.println tickets. Just me print the tickets, whatever is available. My server will be restarted. Clear the console. Let me go for book ticket again. Post request, body, remove this, /ticket, passenger data I'm sending in the JSON, click on send. So now passenger data sent to the server, ticket is booked and I got the ticket ID. Okay. Once I got the ticket ID, then go to the get request /ticket/ticket ID. Send it. Now I got the ticket data in the XML. I want the ticket data in the JSON format. Okay. Then I will go for accept is equal to application/JSON. Now ticket data I can take in the JSON format. If I give XML, ticket data will come in the XML format. So now in which format Make My Trip want to send the data? Make My Trip wants to get the data. It is Make My Trip choice because IRCT is flexible. IRCTC can take your passenger data in the XML format or JSON format. IRCTC can provide you ticket data in the XML format or JSON format. As a client, that is Make My Trip choice to send the data and to receive the data in which format they want. Are you guys clear with my point? Now, my REST API is tightly coupled or my REST API is loosely coupled for the clients. My REST API is tightly coupled with the clients, or my REST API is loosely coupled with the clients? My REST API is loosely coupled with the clients. Okay. Now I developed a REST API to book the tickets. Let's consider this REST API is developed for IRCTC. Can Make My Trip book the tickets with IRCTC now? Do you think that Make My Trip will develop the logic again to book the train tickets, or Make My Trip will use IRCTC logic to book the train tickets? It will use the IRCTC. Client will access Make My Trip. End user will access Make My Trip. But what Make My Trip will do? Make My Trip will collect data from the end users from the UI. Make My Trip will send that data to the IRCTC. IRCTC will book the ticket, will give the ticket data to the Make My Trip. Make My Trip will give the ticket to the end user. That is business to business communication. Similarly, there is another client called Yatra. Now, do you think that Yatra people will develop that train ticket logic once again, or they will use IRCTC logic? Yatra people will develop the logic once again, or they will do business with the IRCTC? They will do business with the IRCTC. For every ticket booking, Make My Trip will pay some amount to the IRCTC people. For every ticket booking, Yatra people will pay some amount to the IRCTC. That is business to business. Now, can Yatra send the request to IRCTC with the passenger data in the XML format? Can Yatra use XML data for input and output? Can Make My Trip use JSON as input and output? Yes, because my IRCTC is flexible. My IRCTC can consume XML data, can produce XML data. My IRCTC can consume JSON data, can produce JSON data. This supports for multiple formats. It is the client choice in which format they want to send the request data, in which format they want to take the response data. So how my REST API, how IRCTC will understand Yatra using which format for request, which format for response? How IRCTC will understand this concept? Headers, content type, and accept. When Yatra company, Yatra project sending a request to the IRCTC, Yatra people should send content type and accept. Content type represents in which format client is sending the request data to the server application, provider application. Accept header represents in which format client is expecting the response from the REST API. Can I consider business to business communications will happen like this? Are you able to understand how one project is communicating with another projects in the real time? Are you able to understand how one project will communicate with another project in the real time now? So as of now, what we have developed, as of now we developed IRCTC application. This is called as our provider application. IRCTC having the functionality to book the train ticket and provide the ticket data. So this is called as a provider. We are understanding our provider details. We are understanding our provider details. We are developing the provider. Once we complete the provider development, that provider will be accessed by other companies by sending the request to our application with the data. Business request, business response. Now, if you come here, are you able to understand the scenario one development? IRCTC providing the ticket booking facility. Make My Trip can send the data in the XML format or in the JSON format. Make My Trip is doing some business. IRCTC doing some business. Make My Trip is doing business. IRCTC doing business. When a customer access Make My Trip will access IRCTC by sending a request with the JSON data or XML data. IRCTC will process the request, will send the response back to Make My Trip in the XML or JSON. Here, IRCTC telling consumes, produces XML and JSON. Make My Trip can use XML or JSON for input and output. Now, look at the code, guys. Guys, for everything, I'm doing the live coding. I'm not executing the examples which are developed in the previous batch. Each and every line I am writing in front of you, and I am testing and I am showing the output also. After attending these classes also, if you are not able to develop these REST APIs, then you are unfit for the programming. Nobody will give you this much clarity on the REST API, step-by-step implementation. You need to understand how I am creating this project and what are the steps that I am giving and how I am testing. I want everybody to develop this example, then only we will get full clarity. So now we are understanding only provider development. Next week, we will understand the consumer development also, client development also. I will show you practically one application will connect with another application. Are you able to follow me? Yeah. Do you understand this example? Anybody having any questions? So you can unmute and you can ask me, guys. This is very important example. Everybody should be able to develop on their own, because whatever the topics we have learnt in the REST API, everything I have implemented here. Get mapping method, post mapping method, request body, path variable, consumes, produces, content type, accept, REST controller. Everything is implemented here. Can you please ask your questions? Anybody having? You can unmute your mic and you can ask your question. I'm not getting your voice, guys. Anybody speaking?
Sir.
Yeah, hi sir, tell me.
Sir, if we are mentioning JSON slash application slash JSON and applications slash XML in consumer, our API is eligible for take XML also and JSON also, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Client can send any format of the data.
Yeah.
Sir, when we send the XML or when we accept the XML, can we write the XML root element annotation in the beans or some posers?
Yes, that is what, right? Ticket data, I can use ticket can be available in the XML or JSON. That's why I have written @XML root element in the ticket class. Similarly, passenger data also, if you want to send in the XML, we can write @XML root element. If you write @XML root element, then that class will become a binding class, so that it can be performed. That class can be used to perform marshalling and unmarshalling.
Okay. When we expecting the R, we send to XML only. We have to write it.
Correct.
Suppose if you sending text or there is not required, right?
Not required.
Hello, sir. When our API means our method accepting XML, can I say that our means we are developing SOAP APIs?
No, no, sir. It is not SOAP API. It is REST API. In the REST API, we are supporting for XML data also. It is not SOAP API. It is REST API. In the REST API, we are using multiple formats of data, XML and JSON. SOAP is completely different.
Okay.
For that too, we need to specify the content type.
Which one?
For the content type, we need to specify, right, in the methods like consumes and produces also when we. Okay.
This is consumes, I'm specifying already. When the client is sending a request, client will specify the content type when he is sending a post request.
Okay.
Got it?
Sir, we can get the value as a map. So we can get the value as a key and value pair. That's why we can use map.
I have not used database. That's why for temporary purpose, I am storing in the map in the form of key and value. Got it?
Okay.
So
this is temporary purpose. I want to store the book ticket somewhere. Generally, we can keep in the database also.
Yes.
Sir, is it recommended to use the random class to generate the ID?
Sir, this is generally when we are storing in the database, primary key will be generated, right? We don't use random. This is temporary purpose I'm using. I'm telling you.
Okay.
My intention is not to discuss database communication today. My intention is discuss how to send the request to the REST API, how to get the response from the REST API, how to support multiple formats of the data. Don't think about the logic what I'm writing. It is dummy.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir, how can we send ticket data in PDF format?
Sorry, how can we?
Send the ticket data in PDF format. PDF.
That client side, they will convert. Now here, Make My Trip application will receive the ticket JSON, right? They will convert into ticket object. The ticket object, they will export into PDF. You need to write the PDF logic at the client side. So IRCTC will not give the PDF to Make My Trip because we are not doing that communication. We are doing B2B. Make My Trip will send passenger data in the JSON or XML. IRCTC will send ticket data in the JSON or XML. After receiving the response from the IRCTC, it is the responsibility of the Make My Trip to convert that ticket data to the ticket PDF. Okay, that is different.
Sir, is there something called as cache controllable headers in REST?
Yes, we will talk about the headers. When we are going to develop the client API, I will tell you how to set the headers in the request and how to here. Currently, how I am testing my REST API from the Postman.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, what we are going to do? We will create the consumer application. On the consumer application, from the consumer application, we will send the request. At that time, we need to create the request programmatically. We need to set the headers in the request programmatically. A program should send the request to the IRCTC. That we will see in the next week, basically.
Okay.
Tomorrow we have a regular class. So provider development is not completed. Still we are understanding the provider development.
So cache comes there from the client side, sir.
Right. Can you guys develop this API before coming to tomorrow's class?
Yes, sir.
Can I check this API tomorrow? Can you guys show me this example?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, madam.
Sir, please correct me if I'm wrong. Sir, request body annotation, can we say that we can use for it converts the it will convert the data and get the result into the object.
Correct. Yes, you can do that. You can consider that. Whenever you use a request body, it will take the request data from the request body and it will store into the object.
But sir, there will be the passenger object, no? We can pass
Yes.
the passenger object here and
Right, madam. So passenger data is coming in the JSON format from the request body. That data, dispatcher servlet will take that data, will convert into object and will give to this method. So whatever the data client is sending, that data is converted into this Java object.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
So what is the difference between binding classes and DTO classes?
Both are same, sir. Yeah, both are same. There is no difference.
Because I have seen some of the project use DTO classes and some of the project binding classes.
Both are same. Both are same.
Thank you.
Sir, hi, sir. Sir, in my company,
Yeah, I want to add a point here. Binding classes or DTO classes, they are used to represent the data and they are used to transfer the data. Here in this scenario, I'm calling passenger and ticket as a binding classes because whatever the data coming from the request, they are storing into object. Whatever the data is there in the object, we are sending to the response.
Okay.
Sir,
in my company, sometimes finding the endpoint is quite complex because they are calling, they are calling so many APIs, sir. So,
so I will tell you, sir. So in the next session tomorrow, what I'm going to do is, tomorrow I will add the Swagger for this project. I will generate the documentation for this project and I will deploy this project in the AWS cloud. Once this project is deployed in the AWS cloud, then you can develop the client and you can access. Suppose if I run client and server, if I run the consumer application and provider application in the same system, you guys will not feel that it is real time. One application IRCTC project I will deploy in the AWS cloud, and in our system we will develop this Make My Trip. From the Make My Trip, we'll make a request to the IRCTC which is in the cloud. Then you will see the real communication. I will show you that as well.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Guys, the upcoming next 20 days classes are very, very, very important because very real-time development we are going to see. Now you have seen I developed one API. Now I am going to develop the client in the tomorrow session. Client to provider communication is going to happen. Don't miss the live classes because these are very, very, very interesting classes. I'm 100% sure nobody will give you this much clarity on the REST API.
Sir, can't we run the consumer and provider in the local machine?
You can run
with
it, sir. You can run it. If I run it now, some people may not understand, sir, why two applications are running in the same computer. So that's why people will get the confusion. So, but in the real time, to consumer and provider will not run on the same computer. I want to show you 100% real time. One application will run in another computer, one application run in our computer, then I will establish the communication. If you want, you can run in the same computer, no problem.
Sir, if client sending some 10 variables, like in my passenger data, I mention only 9 variables, then how it will capture all the data?
Can you please repeat your question?
Sir, now we are sending in from JSON file in body, like 10 variables, like name, from, to, date of joining, train numbers.
Right.
These 6 are there.
Right.
So in my passenger class, if I mention only 5 variables,
whatever the keys are coming in the request JSON, right? Only those variables will be mapped to passenger class. Remaining keys will be ignored.
Remaining keys will be ignored.
Yeah, here in the passenger class, assume that I have only 3 variables in the passenger class.
Yes.
But here you are sending so many variables.
Yes.
Now what it will do is only it will store the data to these 3 variables which are matching with the keys in the JSON. Whichever keys are not matching with the variable names, that will be ignored.
Okay, if keys not match also, it will not take the data.
No, it will. Even here, our variable name should match with the key name. Then only this data will be stored into this variable. That is called binding.
Okay.
JSON data will be binded to our class variable. That's why we are calling as binding classes.
And one more, whenever I am saving any, if I do any changes in controller and if I change, if I run, every time it is showing, please, your server port is running.
Yeah, then do one thing. Add the dev tools so that automatically it will restart on the same port number. Whenever you are creating a project, add this dependency, dev tools dependency.
Every time I'm adding this dev tools, sir, still every time when I run, it will show.
You listen to me. Whenever you add a dependency, you should not run the project every time because already the project is running on the 8080 port number.
Yes,
whenever you run the project, it will try to run on the 8080. 2 times you can't use the same port number, right?
No, sir, I'm not running. Automatically, if I do any changes in controller, automatically it will only run, right?
You do one thing. Automatically, when it runs, it will not restart the server. It will restart the server on the same port number, not the different port number, right? We should not get that problem. So if you have that problem, kill all the Java processes which are running in your system. Because one port number we can use by only one process.
Yes. So because this is happening for me every time I need to close the STS and again I need to open and
no, man, this is very you no need to close the STS every time. You go to your console, check the processes which are running, kill those processes. That's it. You no need to close and open the IDEs. Okay. It is very a simple solution.
Yes.
Sir, I am not understanding the path variable annotation.
Path variable annotation is used to take the data from the URL. Okay. Did you attend WebMVC classes? In the Spring WebMVC, I explained what is path variable and what is query parameter. It is used to take that whatever the data coming in the URL after the ticket, that data should be stored into this variable. For that, we are using path variable annotation. Path variable is used to read the data from the URL and store into this variable.
Okay.
Yep. Fine, guys. Good. Notes already updated in the portal. Please practice this API development before coming to tomorrow class. Tomorrow I will call the names randomly. You people should show me your API. Tomorrow I will explain the Swagger. Thank you.